Welcome back. We're in discussion in the studio with the author and director of Africa is Open for Business, Victor Kgomoeswana. And we're talking about investment in Africa, whether or not geopolitics is pushing investment towards the continent. So we spoke about the external factors. Let's talk about the internal factors. The IMF upgrading its growth outlook for sub-Saharan Africa in 2019, talking about commodity prices, and that will be benefiting from that. You are talking earlier on about the oil wars as well, because there is that. How are we measuring up?
Well, for the oil particularly, we have a number of oil-producing countries. In sub-Saharan Africa, as you mentioned, we have Angola and Nigeria. They are top oil producers. And you know, every time oil price tanks, the oil price goes below a certain level, Nigeria has to go back and redo its budget because it's still too dependent on oil. So the volatility of oil doesn't favor
Let's
Nigeria.
Talk about why it's tanking, though, Victor. The nuclear war issue with Iran, the US going back and forth. There's Saudi Arabia. There's OPEC that's looking to corral its share of the market.
It's OPEC, right? It's rivalry, or is it sibling rivalry within OPEC? Remember, Saudi Arabia was trying to dominate this game, and that's why it didn't cooperate that much. Normally, OPEC was able to go and say, we're going to cut production to drive up the price. But suddenly, people who know oil better say Saudi Arabia saw Iran cashing in on any cuts because you cut, Iran was outside, and it was going to cash in on that. And Saudi Arabia said, there's no way we're allowing a new upstart or an Iran into the game. So they started pulling in their own direction until they realized to the point that, hey, this being a rebel in the family is affecting our own fiscus because they are still an oil economy, yes. So it's sibling rivalry, I would say. The other tensions have always been there. We've always had war. We had the Gulf War. We had a whole lot of things. Oil price did what oil prices do. But the real problem, I think, for the past 3 to 5 years has been within the OPEC story, where Saudi Arabia suddenly started not voting with the groupthink that we've become used to as the cartel.
But how do we step up and make sure that we are in line with the US, for instance, that's increased production of oil, and that we reduce the amount of commodities that we're exporting as Africa?
Well, we have to just believe in our self-worth, Tsepiso. OPEC is a cartel. A cartel is not built to protect Africa. Even if you have members of Africa that are, African countries that are members of, that cartel was never about African interests. So we have to decide. We know that if we have a cartel that affects even those countries amongst us that are producing oil, we should do something that serves our interests, you see. And that's where you look at Donald Trump and you say, for whatever he's doing, he at least is putting America first, right? And we should start saying there's no way that Nigeria, as a top oil producer, a member of OPEC, can suffer like any other country, including having fuel shortages when they produce crude on their own soil. So it's about just putting Africa first and deciding to do our own thing.
So let's talk about that. So we signed the CFTA. If you look at the top 10 fastest growing economies, a lot of them are African countries. What are we not optimizing on? Looking at the various as well, things like public debt, the good governance, etc. What are we not tweaking?
We are not optimizing our numbers. We have over 1 billion people, which makes us a China or an India. When China negotiates, it's able to get a deal or whatever deal it wants because they use the numbers. We're divided into 54 countries. So we are way too nursing the false sovereignty and independence that we look like we are an independent state when we know we are not. We should be leveraging the numbers. Secondly, we should be leveraging the resources that we have. At the moment, we allow other people to come and say, hey, Tsepiso, you've got gold, may I do this? You wait for China to come and say, may I build your infrastructure in return for mining rights? Whereas it should be the African Union saying, the sum total of oil, the sum total of gold, of diamonds, what do they come to? Can we use that to ensure that we never go to the IMF
So
again?
Final question, additive manufacturing, that seems to be a thing that could help us out of our real problems of development. What should we be doing?
We should just grow some guts. There's a stronger word that you can't use on television. We don't have the guts to insist that whoever takes commodities out of Africa should beneficiate them there. Nobody's going to do it for us. We should do it ourselves. So far, we are not doing well.
And that's a good note to end it on. Thank you so much for speaking to us, joining us tonight. Victor Kgomoeswana, who is director and author of Africa is Open for Business. So that's it. We've come to the end of the show. But